Today, May 28, 2019, we are joining the rest of the world to celebrate International Menstrual Health Day. This day is celebrated globally to draw attention to the key issues around menstrual health and menstrual hygiene management, and especially the girls who are disadvantaged and they cannot keep in school owing to challenges related to menstrual health management. In Uganda, this is the 5th edition of International Menstrual Health Day. The event attracts numerous actors from the government, from the NGOs, from the community-based organizations, from faith-based organizations, from schools, and from private sector.
Today we are going to celebrate what we've achieved as a country. We are going to share in terms of creating a conducive environment for our adults and girls and women to stay and go through menstruation with dignity.
I remember when we started in 2012 as Minister of Education, it was not an easy thing to even talk about menstruation in the public, to the meetings and everyone. But we said, this is the journey that we have to take. And we realized this from a study that was conducted by IRC, which pointed out that actually our girls were missing between 4 to 5 days attending to menstruation. And as a sector, we could not sit back and look at that big number of girls dropping out of school.
We have come really a long way. You know, I'll give you just an example. When I was in school, I used to sit with some girls here. At one point, one of the girls went into periods in class. And when she stood to walk, we looked behind. It was terrible. It was just blood. And we laughed. In fact, personally, I even teased that girl to a point. And she was a relative. She dropped out of school. I remember, and I really regret that kind of thing I did.
Some of the major developments over the years have been, first, the forming of the National Menstrual Hygiene Management Steering Committee at the national level under the Ministry of Education and Sports Gender Unit that really put MHM on the agenda, and that was a huge step for Uganda as a country. Another massive acknowledgement of the importance of MHM was celebrating our very first MH Day here in Uganda in 2015. And for us as a company, the passing of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards standard for reusable sanitary pads was a huge accomplishment. It was the second standard to be developed across Africa.
But this came all the way from 2015, where different stakeholders, civil society, government and partners sat together to give priority to menstrual health management, especially for girls in schools. And out of this engagement, we had, as a parliamentary forum on water, sanitation and hygiene, moved a motion in Parliament, where Parliament adopted that government of Uganda takes key steps in coming up with a policy addressing menstrual health management.
The Ministry of Education and Sports and the Menstrual Health Management Coalition in 2015 adopted the Menstrual Health Management Charter, and within this charter we resolved to key important interventions. One was the development of an issues paper on menstrual health management to inform the development of the National Development Plan 2, the post-2015 Development Agenda, and the Sustainable Development Goals.
We are working with so many private sector, education development partners, NGOs, civil society organizations. We've mobilized our teachers, we've mobilized our parents to play their roles and responsibility so that they deliver effectively to menstrual health management in our schools.
Some schools are adopting already a situation of having not shared latrines, not shared washrooms for boys and girls, but single-sex washrooms for girls and washrooms for boys differently. Some schools have also gone ahead to have the changing rooms for girls, whereby they are comfortable, they can even shower and go back to school and study. So as Parliament of Uganda, we moved an issue to ensure that the Minister of Finance waives the tax on sanitary pads. Right now we are arguing that sanitary pads should totally be tax-free.
Since we started the menstrual health management movement in Uganda, we have made a lot of gains. We have brought together different stakeholders. This event has been growing bigger each year. We have participants from all over the country. They always come, they share their experiences, they share lessons, and they go back and inspire action.
The past 5 years as being an advocate for MHM, it has changed my life. I'm not the mere teacher because I teach math, I go to class, and I also love menstrual hygiene. The people outside there, now they are free to talk about menstruation ever since this campaign started. So that's why you see men put on t-shirts. We had themes like break the silence, menstruation is not a taboo. So you find that now men are very happy to talk about menstruation. That's why even today our guest of honor was a man.
I started going into these issues without fear or favor to remove the kind of taboo that was existing. Because it happened to me when my daughter was having it for the first time. I was the only one around. So from that time on, I started taking this as a very, very critical issue in the parenting. But now as a teacher, I interact with so many girl children. And this business of, administrators saying these issues are for only women, I decided to be an advocate that even we male teachers, males in the homes, males in the churches, males in even the LOCs, we have the responsibility to making sure that to provide a conducive environment in which our girls can feel the confidence, because I believe it is what makes them women.
The most challenging factor has been around the web of silence. Of course, characterized by discriminatory practices, characterized by a really lack of knowledge, but also characterized by lack of facilities.
Teachers and parents have this, I don't know what, attitude that they don't want to introduce this topic to the child. Maybe they are waiting until they get into the problem, then they'll start the talk. So by the time the girl enters, maybe she won't open up to you because she's like, how am I going to start? So she's surrounded by fear. She begins declining in some way or the other in confidence.
Some cultures believe that a woman should not go to the toilet. So you should go to the nearby bush. So even these girls, when they are menstruating, they expect that they should just use the leaves and use them to pad themselves, but these are not sustainable.
We still have people who still think when this child is starting menstruation that is now an adult, so she has to get married. And there are statements that we make, nawe kacholi mukazi, ufuse mukazi. And at the end of the day, what does this young person feel? And this has led into child marriages and then to politicizing issues of health. Sometimes when it comes to issues of menstruation, people want to make them political. You promised, you did this, where are the provisions? And then there's a lot of neglect by the parents when it comes to providing the basic requirements, especially from our side as education. If we are saying we have free programs and children should be given an opportunity to come to school because it's their right, and these parents are sending the children with books but without the necessities to make them go through menstruation with dignity, then that is also a challenge that we have.
MHM is on the radar in Uganda. It's increasingly being addressed by the government, by private sector and by civil society organizations. And that standard of care is rising, but there's still quite a long way to go. The United Nations has declared menstrual hygiene to be a human right. And so in order to achieve that, we need broad and holistic approaches to our menstrual hygiene interventions. We need to see that spanning the whole country, and we need to see that collaboration and partnership, and I think public-private partnerships can play a huge role there, and that's where we look forward to continuing to help advance menstrual hygiene here in Uganda.
You cannot talk about menstrual hygiene management when the learning environment itself is not conducive. You must have water facilities, you must have toilets that are conducive. So what are we saying? That as government, as we made the commitments to support menstrual hygiene management, our stakeholders, our key partners, the parents, should also equally get on board to make sure that we support this girl to come to school, be able to remain in school and complete her education without having any barriers.
We are calling upon different stakeholders to support us. We are aware that the private sector is critical, where government is not able to contribute all the resources we require. Private sector can come to our rescue. We are working with non-government organizations. We are also making an appeal to our head teachers and teachers to ensure that the facilities that are put in schools are effectively managed, maintained, and kept clean, such that our docent girls can really take advantage of these facilities. To the girls, menstruation is normal. It's a process that should be celebrated, but of course it's a process that has to be managed. You don't need to keep out of school because you're undergoing menstruation. It's a matter of just accessing the products that you need to manage the process and the cycle most effectively. To the parents, it's your role and responsibility to provide sanitary towels for the adolescent girls.
And for us as Parliament, we'll always advocate for the allocation of resources so that the sanitation and hygiene is always a going concern among the different stakeholders, but both in Parliament, but also with the lower local governments.
The issue of menstrual health is here to stay. As long as girls are being born every day, we shall have the matter of menstrual health on the table. So we need to sustain the interest, we need to break the silence, we need to defy the taboos. We need to bring all girls on board. We need to go beyond schools and reach out to those girls and women who are struggling in other contexts.